Welcome to the Potion Podcast, your raw look at the hospitality industry, brought to you by SHC. This week's episode is proudly sponsored by Bar Green Ellington for all your restaurant and bar needs. Visit bargreen.com for the full portfolio. What is happening, everybody? Welcome back to the Post Shift Podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Shawn Soole. I'm a little bit late this week. I do apologize. I've had a bit of a trip off island to do a visit for a client, and that sort of tied up my Sunday. So I do apologize, but I'm coming. We're going to be 8 hours late, but there's going to be a Tuesday episode. I've had a lot of people asking me about reopening. I'm dealing with reopening myself at Clive's, and I've had a lot of people have been asking me about how I see reopening sort of going. And so I put a question out on social media the other day about what are your thoughts, worries, like what's your concerns with reopening post-pandemic right now with how everything's going. Obviously, you've seen these articles about staff shortages and people not wanting to come back to work in the hospital industry. I've done a couple of episodes about why this has been so difficult, but we're going to sort of get into that a little bit today. This is sort of going to be a bit broader, so I had some really good feedback. I wanted to sort of put it down on tape to put it into prosperity. So let's kick it off with some bullet points, yeah? So reevaluation of client and staff safety. This is a really big one because WorkSafe BC, provincially here in BC, hasn't really rolled out a plan. It's still very much your safety is your design, as long as it goes into these sort of mantras and this box that we've sort of built. And a lot of people have asked me about masks, and when staff are not going to be able to wear masks anymore. And this is a really tough one because I know that at the hotel that I work at, that it's going to be sometimes going to probably be all summer. And it's really tough to sort of gauge because they're saying here in BC that by July 1st, masks will be optional for the guest. So this is a big one. So masks, distancing, and perspex barriers, I think are going to be for a bit. I think the distancing will definitely be less in a restaurant. I think perspex will come down in the next couple of months too. But I think it's going to be a personal choice per operator when masks stop getting worn for staff. I've said this from the very get-go of the pandemic that you never want to be the place where there's an outbreak. And I still stand by that, especially here. So I do see mask wearing for staff continuing post summertime, purely because there is still a lot of people who aren't vaccinated, who don't want to get vaccinated, people from out of province. And once we open up the borders to the US, we're definitely going to get an influx of tourists and visitors from outside our province that haven't been given the same mandates that we've been given as provincial residents. So really, as an operator, you need to take a think and see how you're going to keep your staff safe. Now, I'm sure staff are really itching to get their masks off, which hell, I am too. But I think rushing it is going to be detrimental very, very quickly in the way of an outbreak or someone coming in from out of state or out of province and infecting a staff member. So you still want to keep your staff safe. So I think that's still going to be a big thing. I think masks and sanitization are still going to be a massive thing for the next 6 to 12 months. That's my reevaluation of client and staff safety. I think we've done a really great job, and I don't think a lot of the things that we're doing right now are going away anytime soon, a la perspex, a la distancing, that sort of thing. This one's the big one. This is what we were talking about at the very beginning. I've done a couple of episodes over the last couple of weeks on this one. Staff hiring, onboarding, and retention. We need to, as operators and managers, start really delving into proper HR practices. And what do I mean by that? I mean that every time that someone gets hired, they need to have a full job description about what they do. If they need to answer the phone, that is part of the job description. If they need to take POS orders, that is part of the job description. They need to make change for staff. That is part of the job description. So we need to have these proper, and this is from everything from a dishwasher all the way up to managers. Every person in your establishment should have a detailed job description. And that is a necessity in my book. So you need to have a look at how do I do these job descriptions? Because the worst thing that people do is they start a new job, and then the first couple of weeks, all of a sudden they're picking up new duties and new things, and they really should be made aware of exactly what their job is. So the hospitality industry has been notorious for not having really good HR practices, and I think the time is now. Secondly, I think that contracts are needed to sort of outlay their rate to start, the tangible and intangible perks of the job, staff meals, drink at the end of the night, these sort of things. These are all things that need to be laid out in a contract so that the staff member understands exactly what they're getting themselves into and what perks. These perks are sometimes seen as an entitled thing, that every place should be doing staff meals for free for their staff. But I do believe that you need to make people understand, staff wise, that these things cost money and they are a perk to the job. Retention. Let's talk about retention. You really need to see where you want your staff in 2 to 5 years. And you need to help your staff do goal setting personally and professionally, and need to help them make those goals. W set twos. My ultimate piece of advice for this one is for someone to actually really enjoy their job and push their limits and want to get more education. How much does it cost to train your staff or pay for training for your staff? And how much does it cost to replace your staff along with training, along with getting people involved, along with how long it takes, all this different stuff? You know that your labor goes through the roof when you have a new staff member, whether it be a bartender, server, cook, because you got to run more bodies all the way through. The person's not can't stay on their own. So calculate how much it costs to replace people instead of calculating how much it costs to retain people. And retention of people costs way, way, way less than replacing people. So if your package is, after 6 months, we sit down and talk about WSET1, CSS, bar smarts, something online that they can sink their teeth into, we'll pay for it. You go off and do your course, you come back, and then you sign on for another 6 months. This is how you can make it work. And so you put into the contract, we're going to pay for your training and everything. But if you leave or quit after X amount of months, then you're going to have to pay X amount of dollars out of how much that course costed. So you don't have people just doing the course and then piecing out a week later after they finished. So once they finish that course, they have to technically sort of pay it off with time at your restaurant, because hopefully your per head spend is going to go up and the training is going to be worth it. Staff reshuffling and training. This one's really tough because I've been lucky enough that I've had a skeleton staff, but I am adding in staff, and staff reshuffling and training is going to be really quick, and it's going to be a massive learning curve for a lot of people, because a lot of people have been shuffled into different positions within the same organization, or they're new people. You've got culture shocks in the way of this. Bringing new people into your team. The team is got a new person that they have to mold into where the place wants to be and how the culture wants to be. So staff reshuffling and training is always going to be tough. I think I've covered training well enough, but you have to be really open and transparent with your staff that you have existing, and that you gain them to come back on board, or they're or been on board and you're changing up hours and so on and so forth. And so transparency and having good, solid conversations with people is super, super important. And so I think transparency when it comes to staff reshuffling and getting your culture ready to go is a big, important thing. Oh, this was a good one. Sustainability without certain market segments. Now, we've had ups and downs all for the last 15, 16 months because of the pandemic. How do we keep sustained now that we're opening up? We've got full capacity. We're open up 12 o'clock at night. We're open later, without certain massive market segments. When I say market segments, I'm talking about usually tourists and visitors. Tourists and visitors are a massive market segment for a lot of cities, and they still may not come back till next summer. So how are you going to stay and be sustainable during this time? For me, I think a lot of tourist places have definitely woken up to the fact that if they attract locals, that tourist cream is much smarter than trying to put all their eggs in the tourist basket and the visitor basket. I think everybody that's been in restaurant business that used to be a touristy spot is now definitely understanding the nature of locals and getting locals involved, getting locals wanting to go there, that sort of thing. So if you are a touristy spot, really double down on your locals, double down on enticing your locals to your venue, and just hope that any sort of tourists that come through, it's just that cream on top. It's that beautiful cream on top. So yeah, focus on your locals is a big one. market capturing the macro and micro. I think this is something that's the same. I think that most restaurants don't do good enough online digital marketing. I think Facebook and Instagram and the like really need to be leveraged way better. They are super cheap for what you get. And if you're looking at just in your city, you can just do Victoria or your city and get some really good keywords and really hit a lot of places and not really spend much, like $5-10 a day. You can get some really good hooks. And I think market capturing in the macro and micro through online digital marketing really needs to be explored now that we're going into this new post-pandemic thing. So please go watch some YouTube channels, hit me up. I can give you some pointers, but Facebook and Instagram marketing is still super cheap, really reliable, very, very, very data driven, and you can get a lot of data from this. And if you're just doing it in your town or a couple kilometers around your restaurant, you can really get a good penetration on market capturing using that technique. So Facebook and Instagram marketing, watch some YouTube videos, hit me up, teach yourself about it. It's gonna change the game in the next 12 months. Restaurants have been too slow to get on board with this. They only let the big guys do it and stuff. But if you're a small restaurant, for a couple of bucks a week, and I'm really talking about a couple of bucks a week, a couple of $100 a month, you can do some serious damage in your town. Managing an influx in the top line revenue. This is a big one because you are all of a sudden going to go from 0 to 60. You're going to go from like having a ton of debt to all of a sudden having a shit ton of dollars. And so this is going to be hard for a lot of operators and a lot of managers. You really need to try and keep that triangle that I always talk about, the three sides. One side's the ownership, one side is staff, one side is guests, all happy at the same time. So while you start really bringing in some serious coin and you start getting a massive influx of top line revenue, you do still have to make sure that your staff is right, your costs are good. You still need to, like, it's not going to be an easy thing. You're going to play catch up, and you're going to have to be very, very, very smart about managing the money that you have coming in. So my suggestion for debts that you may have incurred during these last 15 months that you may be still seeing on and taking phone calls and dropping emails to people to try and get extensions is go top to bottom. Who is the most important? Then pay them. Who's the next most important? Then pay them, and do this week by week by week. And that leads me into my next one. Recalculation of costs. I've talked about this a ton. I've got the break-even calculator I did a couple of weeks ago, which is absolutely massive. Break-even calculator. Go check out your costs, because at the end of the day, we've got wholesale pricing for liquor right now in BC. So a lot of places have got much cheaper liquor. So you can really see how you can squeeze a little bit more money out of your bar. We have the minimum wage gone up to $15.20. We have to really make sure that all our costs are in line with these different costs. The supply chain issues that we're seeing and the cost of certain things going up, produce and meat and so on and so forth, really need to be seen at on a weekly basis. So if you're running a cocktail program with like fresh limes, lemons, and oranges, you really need to make sure that you are calculating your costs correctly. And this is going to be the make or break. Those last 2 points. Those last 2 points are the make or break to your top line business. And you've got to be making money. You've got to be making that bottom line. The rest of the stuff is just as important. And again, it's that triangle: staff, ownership, guests. The triangle's got to be same side at all times to really make sure that you're lining up. So that is my piece of advice for the pandemic, post-pandemic reopenings. This is a lot. Post-pandemic reopenings is a lot to deal with right now, and I do put my heart and soul out to everybody who is going through this right now. It is a ton of work. I'm doing it myself. I'm hiring more staff. It's been difficult, even with being a union shop, with higher rates, benefits, the whole shebang. So I feel for everybody who's an independent restaurant right now. As always, if you need a piece of advice, need some help, need a spreadsheet, anything, just hit me up, drop me a message, and we'll chat real soon. Guys, thanks as always for the support. See you soon. Bye. Thanks for listening, Pose Shifters. I hope you enjoyed that episode. I really enjoy sitting down with friends and peers and just chatting about the industry and getting down to the nuts and bolts of what's really going on out there. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, everything on all the platforms. Just hit it up and I'll do my best to answer any queries or questions you have. I'll see you next week, guys. Bye.